Good morning, everyone. On this fine, chilly morning, I am going to chat about some things that I've been finding in Romans. We've been studying it in women's Bible study, and it has been fantastic. And I just recommend reading through Romans and really reading it because there's a lot of treasures in there. And I'm going to start in chapter 3 at verse 28, which for myself, and I know for a good number of people, is a very familiar passage. For we maintain that a man is justified by faith apart from works of the law. Sounds familiar? This is the argument of we don't have to do anything. I always wonder now, do you guys just not keep reading? Because if we keep reading, there's more. Or is God the God of Jews only? Is he not the God of Gentiles also? Yes, of Gentiles also, since indeed God who will justify the circumcised by faith and the uncircumcised through that faith is one. Do we then abolish the law through faith? May it never be. On the contrary, we establish the law. You gotta wonder sometimes how many people actually read that bit. And the fun bit, I'm going to skip ahead a bunch into chapter 4 because Paul starts talking about Abraham. And we're all familiar with the passage where it was by faith that Abraham was considered righteous. It was Abraham's faith that he's considered righteous. But I want to look at what did Abraham's faith do for him? Did he just sit there and be like, yeah, I believe? Like, what did he do? And so going into chapter 4 and starting at verse 8, this is how it describes Abraham's faith, his believing what God said, believing God's promises. In hope against hope he believed, so that he might become a father of many nations, according to that which had been spoken, so shall your seed be. And without becoming weak in faith, he contemplated his own body, now as good as dead, since he was about 100 years old, and the deadness of Sarah's womb. Yet, with respect to the promise of God, he did not waver in unbelief, but grew strong in faith, giving glory to God, and being fully assured that what God had promised, he was able also to do. How many of us receive a promise or something and circumstances look like this is impossible? And you start doubting, okay, well, no. But you think about it, Abraham lived before Moses, before all, like, he's like the one of the first big heroes of the faith. So there would have been some stories of probably passed down by his fathers regarding Adam and the flood and all of that stuff, but it's not like the Israelites coming out of Egypt who had signs and wonders to remind themselves of who God was. This is Abraham, an old man who by faith left his home to go to a land unknown to him because God promised that he would give it to him, and he left not having any children. And God still promised this, and he looks at the circumstances. He looks at like, I'm 100 years old. I've been married to my wife for most of that. She hasn't had any kids. She's 90, 95. Like, you're looking at the circumstances around you and you're like, this is impossible. Yet Abraham in faith said, but God said it, so it can happen. And there's something beautiful about the faith of Abraham and how God chose him to be the father of the faith. Because Romans describes the fact that his belief in God was counted to him as righteousness. This is before he's circumcised. So he's the father of the faith to all who's either Jew or Gentile, according to Paul in Romans. And I think that's such a cool thing because it doesn't matter where you come from or what knowledge you had previously of God. If you believe what he says, that he's going to do it in spite of the circumstances, in spite of what looks like an impossible situation, like this isn't going to happen, that God is still God, and he can do it. If he says he's going to do it, he's going to do it. And we need to remember that. And it's okay to question, it's okay to wonder, right? Abraham considered the deadness of Sarah's womb and his age. But in considering it, he also considered who God was. And he found that who God was superseded what was there in the physical. So that's my challenge when doubts, when circumstances come in and it seems like it's just impossible to see God break through. Remember, he is bigger and he is more than what we see physically here on this earth.